Federalist 57, Part 4. This is paragraph 14. Lots of paragraphs in this Federalist. Remember, Madison is challenging the Anti-Federalists' assertion. They're thinking that 65 members to the first House of Representatives, 65 members in the first House of Representatives, in the first Congress, is going to be creating almost an oligarchy there. It is not enough people to represent all the people of the states, and Madison is answering this criticism, and let me read this to you. Is the doctrine warranted by facts? It was shown in the last paper that the real representation in the British House of Commons exceeds the proportion of 1 for every 30,000 inhabitants. Besides a variety of powerful causes not existing here, and which favor in that country the pretensions of rank and wealth, no person is eligible as a representative of a county unless he possesses real estate of the clear value of 600 pounds sterling per year, nor of a city or borough unless he possesses a like state of half that annual value. To this qualification on the part of the county representatives is added another on the part of the county electors, which restrains the right of suffrage to persons having a freehold state of the annual value of more than 20 pounds sterling, according to the present rate of money. Notwithstanding these unfavorable circumstances, and notwithstanding some very unequal laws in the British Code, it cannot be said that the representatives of the nation have elevated the few on the ruins of the many. Remember, in the last paper, he looked at the British House of Commons, and he figured out that, number one, half of the people there are only representing 5,000 people. And it's only 200 some of them that are representing actually the people of the 8 million people of England and Scotland. And he said, if you figure this out, there's one representative per 30,000 people that live in England and Scotland. And he said, we have the same thing here, and England seems to be the freest country on that side of the Atlantic Ocean. So the number here that's assigned for every member is going to be the same. But we don't have all those negative things that go with the British system. The system that you have to have a lot of money, be a landholder. A lot of times you have to actually have a title, be a lord, a this and that. He says, we don't have that. Your average people, common people here in our states can actually elect our representatives. You don't have to have a huge amount of money. Now, keep in mind, at the time there was some property qualifications to vote in the United States. That is a fact. But when you look at that era, people that lived in the States, in the United States, in what would be the United States, had actually a better chance of being able to vote for their representatives than anywhere else in the world. He keeps on acknowledging that the British system is great. However, you've got to have this, you've got to have that. He says, we don't have those things blocking you people from electing your representatives, actually being represented in your Congress that is going to come around if you adopt this Constitution. So I'll continue with the next paragraph, and he's going to now look at what is actually happening inside the states, inside the 13 states, and answer critics this way. But we need not resort to foreign experience on this subject Our own is explicit and decisive. The district in New Hampshire, in which the senators are chosen immediately by the people, are nearly as large as will be necessary for her representatives in the Congress. Those of Massachusetts are larger than will be necessary for that purpose, and those of New York still more so. In the last state, which is New York, the members of Assembly for cities and counties of New York and Albany are elected by very nearly as many voters as will be entitled to a representative in the Congress, calculating on the number of 65 representatives only. It makes no difference that in these senatorial districts and counties, a number of representatives are voted for by each elector at the same time. If the same electors at the same time are capable of choosing 4 or 5 representatives, they cannot be incapable of choosing one. Pennsylvania is an additional example. Some of her counties, which elect her state representatives, are almost as large as her districts will be by which her federal representatives will be elected. The city of Philadelphia is supposed to contain between 50 and 60,000 souls. It will therefore form nearly 2 districts for the choice of federal representatives. It forms, however, but one county in which every elector votes for each of its representatives in the state legislature. And what may appear to be still more directly to our purpose, the whole city actually elects a single member for the executive council. This is the case in all the other counties of the state. So he says, look at the states, example after example. Some of their representatives, whether they are they're going to be elected for the council that watches over the governor, or whether it's the Senate of the state legislature, people vote. The number of people that are going to vote for one of those people is going to be equal to the same number that will be voting for your representative to the Congress. So he says, what is your problem? Are not these facts the most satisfactory proofs of the fallacy which has been employed against the branch of the federal government under consideration? Has it appeared on trial that the senators of New Hampshire, Massachusetts, and New York, or the Executive Council of Pennsylvania, or the member of the Assembly in the 2 last states have betrayed any peculiar disposition to sacrifice the many to the few, or are any respect less worthy of their places than the representation and magistrates appointed in other states by very small divisions of the people? But there are cases of a stronger complexion than any which I have yet quoted. But there are cases of a stronger complexion than any which I have yet quoted. One branch of the legislature of Connecticut is so constituted that each member of it is elected by the whole state. So is the governor of that state, of Massachusetts, and of this state, and the president of New Hampshire. I leave every man to decide whether the result of any one of these experiments can be said to countenance a suspicion that a diffusive mode of choosing representatives of the people tends to elevate traitors and undermine the public liberty. So he says, look at all these states that are going to have this same ratio of people voting for one representative as they're going to have the same ratio for electing a representative to the Congress of the United States. Tell me, how many violations have you seen? How many of them have turned out to be traitors because 5,000, 6,000 people voted to elect them instead of 500. It says you are not going to find any. So the same thing applies to the Congress, especially the House of Representatives. Just because you enlarge the area of the district that the person is going to be elected from, like Federal number 10 said, it doesn't translate that you're not going to get good representation. So he answers the critics this way. I hope you've had a chance to look at some of the videos that I've introduced, videos of the lectures by different professors whose names I've given you, or gone to the C-SPAN website or some of the other websites I have recommended, and watched a few interesting discussions, lectures, or maybe some documentary films about American history and civilization.